Hi, everybody. I'm Nolan Hoffman. Thanks so much for joining us for East Texas in Focus tonight. Let's get started. Well, tonight we are focusing on storm seasons, and we're currently in one right now as we speak. In East Texas, severe weather, including tornadoes, is most common during the spring months, particularly from April through June. And while tornadoes can occur throughout the year, this period sees the highest peak of activity. And on top of that, East Texas is left blind due to dead zones on our radars. That's why we're bringing in Chief Meteorologist Carson Vickroy tonight to explain more. Carson, how's it going? And thanks for joining us.
Going well. Got some miles in this morning. It was beautiful, but it is the peak of severe weather season, which is why we are here to discuss. I think this is going to be a good talk between us today.
It certainly is. I want to start with your background tonight here in East Texas, where you're from. You're from the Dallas area, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm from the Dallas area.
You went to Kansas University.
Rock Chalk.
Why Kansas?
Well, I wanted to have the opportunity to study meteorology and also run track and field and cross country in Tornado Alley.
What made that meteorology program kind of set apart from other schools you were looking at?
Well, it was small, and you got to have a lot of one-on-ones with the professors, so that helped me understand the science and help further my career in the industry.
And I want to start with, I want to go now to certainly an important topic on your radar, the dead zone between DFW and Shreveport. What should we know about that if somebody doesn't know what that exactly means?
Yes, so when we are forecasting the weather, when we are tracking the severe weather here in East Texas, we typically use two radars. The one that's closest to us is Shreveport, which is about 80 miles away from Tyler. And the radar beams, Nolan, they shoot up into the atmosphere. So what we are seeing is not at the ground level, but what we are seeing is about a mile up into the atmosphere. And we're not seeing the low-level features like tornadoes, the hail size, which is why it's important that we have storm spotters on the ground to report anything that's going on at the surface level. And Fort Worth doesn't get much better either. We'll use that for our western counties, Hopkins County, Rains County, Van Zant County, Henderson and Anderson counties, but Fort Worth's about 120 miles away, so typically it's over 10,000 feet up in the atmosphere. That's what we're seeing.
How hard is it to forecast with that?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's difficult to forecast. It's just harder to know exactly what's happening with the storm at the surface level. If there is a tornado there or if there isn't, which again, that's why we rely on a lot of our cameras that we have here at the KETK and Fox 51 studios, and why we have storm spotters as well.
And specifically here in East Texas, what's tricky sometimes with not even just the weather, but severe weather when we see it here in the area?
Well, I would say it's just a vast area that we cover. So we're covering everything down to the lakes, Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn, and all the way up to the Sulphur River. So we could be talking about severe thunderstorms in Lufkin, and Tyler and Longview residents are like, well, what are you talking about, Carson? The weather's fine up here because the front's already gone through, but we've got storms in deep East Texas that we're having to keep people informed on.
What is the most frustrating thing you regularly deal with in East Texas, predicting and talking about severe weather each and every, pretty much springtime when we're in the peak of severe weather like we are right now?
Well, we always seem to have the environment that's ripe for severe weather. So not all those events verify. Picking out which events are going to verify over the other events that may not verify, that can be quite tricky. And what I mean by forecast verification is if we actually do see the storms, and we like it when we don't see the storms, but you know, our audience will sometimes suggest, well, you guys are just crying wolf. Well, sometimes the atmospheric conditions can all be there and then nothing happens, or vice versa. We don't have as good of the ingredients that we need for severe weather, and then everything happens.
What would you say is the most rewarding part of doing and covering weather and maybe severe weather here in East Texas when things do get hectic?
I would say when a viewer comes up to you on the street or at the grocery store or somewhere else, the gym, what have you, and they say, thank you for our weather coverage. You saved our lives today because you told us to seek shelter. I've been out to sites that have been damaged by tornadoes, and that has happened. And you know, it's not only me, it's all the meteorologists on the East Texas storm team and the reporters, the producers, everybody behind the scenes that helps us get that message out in a clear manner.
Yeah, it's certainly an important aspect of all of our jobs here at the station. I want to talk about Viper radar technology and what that allows you to do. We see it on the commercials and stuff like that. For somebody like me who really doesn't know much about that, what does that help you guys do each and every day tracking the weather?
Well, Nolan, I'm biased with that. I mean, that is the best radar technology that we have in East Texas. It is the most, it has the highest resolution. You can see it on the screen right there. It's easy to pick out where the heaviest rain is. It's also very easy to pick out where areas of rotation or areas of large hail is. So we're able to get the best possible look at the storm to inform our viewers, hey, this is what's coming. Be prepared for X, Y, and Z. You can do this because you have 10 minutes before the storm arrives, or you can't do this because the storm, it's about to move in to your neighborhood.
And you also sometimes go to schools, if I'm not mistaken, around the area to teach and tell children kind of about what you do, what meteorology is, how important it is to inform viewers about, hey, you know, pending severe weather in the area. What were some of those experiences like? And just kind of talk a little bit about that. And it's probably, I'm guessing, rewarding too.
Yes, so that's a lot of fun to see the teachers and the students, you know, kind of light up when the local weatherman comes to talk about weather and severe weather and tornadoes and, you know, everything else that comes with meteorology in general. They get really excited, and not only the school level children, but, you know, a lot of the adult groups too, you know, that are into gardening or into bird watching, you know, they get really excited as well, just because they get to see, you know, somebody that's well informed talk about the weather and what's going on with the weather, and you know what the shifts between seasons and what La Nina and El Nino is, you know, just to kind of get a better idea and a better grasp of what meteorology and climate is like.
Yeah, that certainly seems like a terrific experience there. And that's a good start tonight when we return with East Texas in Focus. More with Carson, Vickroy, and more on our topic as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Tonight we are focusing on storm seasons. The wind, rain, and even tornadoes causing damage in their path. Roofs blown off, buildings, homes destroyed by falling trees. And after every round of bad weather, people are left without power. The key is always being prepared and aware. And staying informed about any dangers heading your way here in East Texas is essential to keeping you and your family safe. KETK's Rachel Davis met with several county emergency managers to find out how they push out vital information to the public.
Knowing when bad weather is headed your way is essential.
We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help push pertinent, timely information out there.
But in rural areas across East Texas counties, staying informed during severe storms can look different. There's spotty cell phone service, and not all areas have tornado sirens.
We've looked at them. They're just very cost prohibitive right now. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they activate after the tornado's gone through.
Rusk County's Emergency Management Coordinator Patrick Dooley says like most updates these days, they get the word out to as many people as possible on social media.
We use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we have all that.
And use Rave Smart 911, a notification system paid by the East Texas Council of Government that allows officials to share important messages and emergency alerts.
You would have full access as far as emergency notifications, whether they be locally, state, or national.
Smith County also uses the same
and then we're
system.
looking at this camera,
It uses a National Weather Service algorithm, and when the National Weather Service issues a weather statement, it triggers that alert, and anyone signed up gets the alert.
The way people can opt into the system is going to their county's website. But when the internet and service go down, they'll go back to the original form of communication.
The sheriff's office, PD, we'd get out there in our patrol vehicles, in fire trucks, on the PA system, you know, putting out messages that way, just like we've done in the past.
Dooley says it's important for everyone to do their own due diligence and stay weather aware.
Listen to the weather. Find different ways, whether it be, you know, the radio, TV, whatever it may be.
So when the wind and rain come, you'll be informed and prepared.
And again, that was Rachel Davis reporting for us this evening. All right, let's get back into it with Chief Meteorologist Carson Vickroy here at KETK and Fox 51 News. Carson, so some future forecasting technologies out there right now. What are some of those, and why can they make a difference? And maybe if you've heard of some that aren't really out there yet, but you've read about it and the difference it can make in forecasting storms and just other parts of weather.
Yes, so that is a good question, Nolan. What we are seeing a lot of now is AI's introduction to weather forecasting.
Yeah.
So there are some forecast models out there that are scary good some of the time, and then some other times, you know, there's still some work that the scientists have to do, but also there is worn on forecasts. So if we're tracking a storm over, let's say, Henderson County, and we're trying to figure out what it's going to do over Smith County, depending on how that storm is behaving in the environment it's going in, we can have a short-term model run to say, okay, this storm is likely to produce a tornado over Smith County, and based on that worn-on forecast analysis, the National Weather Service can then issue a warning in advance to give people in the path of that storm ample time to seek shelter.
Do you think you're ever going to be using AI to track severe weather and forecast? And is that kind of a thing where we need to watch out for? You said it could have positives, but there might be some negatives to that as well.
So I think it overall will be positive to keeping the viewer safe as long as the viewer is informed. And I don't think it's a question of if, it's a matter of when that's going to happen. I mean, there are some models in Europe that are already using the AI technology. And as I mentioned before, it's not 100% accurate. No weather model is, but sometimes it's a pretty good gauge of what the weather's going to be like in 4, 5, 6 days from now.
So really it's only a matter of time before we start using and incorporating that AI into maybe local news, correct?
Yes, I mean, I think eventually that's going to be the case. We'll have to wait and see. You know, I make weather predictions. I'm not going to make predictions on how AI is going to aid in future business ventures of TV news. But once again, I do think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting topic to talk about. But to forecast severe weather, what ingredients are you always looking for?
That's a good question. So I'm typically looking for 4 ingredients, Nolan. You have to have a lot of wind energy or wind shear. You also have to have instability, and we have that instability in the springtime because we start to get temperatures back up into the 70s and 80s. But also what we see a lot of here in East Texas is that Gulf moisture. Why does it feel humid? Well, the Gulf is just about 200 miles, 2 hours south, and all that Gulf moisture starts to seep up. And then we typically need something to provide lift for those showers and thunderstorms to form. That's going to be a dry line. That's going to be some other type of boundary. That's going to be a cold front that's going to be moving through the area. So again, cold front, wind energy, instability, and Gulf moisture.
Ice and cold weather forecasting, how is that going to differ? It might be kind of confusing. Maybe not for you, but for me.
No, it is confusing to us meteorologists because in Montana it was a lot easier. We knew it was going to be snow most of the time, just on how the mountainous challenges were, and because the temperature was always below 32 degrees. Now here, it's a lot different because where we were a lot of the times this past winter was the wintry battle zone, where we had some areas to the north that were at 30, 31 degrees. Well, what do you see there? You see freezing rain and a lot of issues caused by that freezing rain. But further to the south, you might see temperatures at 32.5 degrees, 33, 34, and you see nothing. So it's knowing exactly where that freezing line is going to set up. And if we do have warmer air aloft, that doesn't make things any easier because that could mean, as opposed to snow falling, it could be freezing rain or sleet.
We don't get a lot of ice here in East Texas. The one thing I could think about when I wasn't here was that 2021 ice storm. Maybe we got some ice when we got some snow a year or two ago, about a year ago from what I can remember, but we don't get it a lot, so it might be a little bit confusing to like when to exactly know it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, as a meteorologist, you really have to have your wits about you when you're forecasting where that wintry battle zone is going to set up. But you're exactly right. We might have a wintry weather event once or twice a year here in East Texas, and sometimes it doesn't even verify because temperatures are just a little bit too warm. And again, that 1 degree temperature difference could mean the difference between 100,000 people without power and then 0 people without power, just depending on where that freezing line sets up, which presents its own challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So tornadoes, hurricanes, talk about forecasting those. How does that differ as well?
Yeah, so tornadoes, we are going to see more events that could produce tornadoes every single year. But you were in the building, I believe, when Beryl was coming through.
Yep.
So when Beryl was coming through, we had tons of tornado warnings because we were in the messy side of the storm. The storm made landfall on the central Texas Gulf Coast, and that's what we're looking out for in the summertime, because anytime we're on the east side of a landfalling hurricane or tropical storm, you tend to see issues with 1, flash flooding, 2, the wind, and also the tornado threat with hurricanes. Now, tornado season, it comes in twofold, right? We're in our primary severe weather and tornado season right now, but the secondary tornado season, which can sneak up on us, is in the fall. But, you know, I want to emphasize this too. Tornadoes can occur at any time of year. Like we saw most of our tornadoes last year in July when Hurricane Beryl was moving through the area. Yeah,
I remember it. It was really, really hectic, especially here in East Texas. Luckily, we didn't get, I mean, we got hit bad, but it wasn't like other areas in the state of Texas. So we got pretty lucky on those regards from at least what we saw here. But switching things over, over now to meteorology and people who might want to become a meteorologist in the future, that might look up to you and see what you do every single day on our newscast. What advice would you give them on that?
So I would say, you know, be well versed in your math and science. You know, always be asking the math teacher for help because meteorology involves a lot of math. I often make the comparison that fluids in the atmospheric air, fluids in the atmosphere, they interact very similarly to one another. So the atmospheric flow is going to be a lot like the fluids that you often see at the surface. So studying the math, the science, the physics, the fluid mechanics, that's all going to be very important to you when studying meteorology. And I would say get connected with somebody. Email me, reach out to me, or email somebody at the National Weather Service or somebody who works in another version of the private sector. Maybe it's aviation, maybe it's energy, but you know, the hands you shake are more important than the grades you make.
And of course, we are in the peak of severe weather season right now. What are the biggest storm safety tips from you yourself that you can give our viewers tonight?
So always have a plan in place. We don't have a lot of basements here in East Texas. You know, there could be a well-constructed house that may have a basement here or there, but chances are 90% of the audience today doesn't have a basement. So you're going to want to look for that interior room. It's got to be a pantry. It's got to be a closet. It could be a bathroom, but no exterior walls, no exterior windows or anything like that. Have non-perishable food items, have a first aid kit, and have 2 ways to get that watch and warning information as well. And if you live in a mobile or manufactured housing unit, anytime a watch is issued, I would have a plan to go somewhere where it's a site-built structure. You're going to be safer there.
All right, Carson, thank you. We certainly appreciate it. When we return tonight, your thoughts will be heard by us as we open up our In Focus inbox after the break. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back this evening. It's that time of the show in which we hear from you, our viewers, for our In Focus inbox. And this one is sent by Jason G saying 30% for rain. Is there 30% chance, or is it a 30% of area that will see the rain? Carson, can you please weigh in on that? You would know.
So if there was one question, Nolan, that could start a fight between meteorologists, this would be the question.
Why is that?
So the scientific definition for this is, if let's say I say there's a 20% chance that the city of Tyler sees rain, so it's over just a given area, there is a 20% chance that the city of Tyler sees 1/100th inch of rain. That can be confusing to the viewers. So what you will see a lot of are meteorologists saying, well, I've got this entire area of East Texas or whatever area they're covering, and I do expect rain. I suspect that 20 to 30% of the area will see rain, so I wouldn't cancel those plans, but have a plan in place just in case you see rain and you happen to be outside. This can be very important to us, especially as we enter the summer months, where most afternoons it's kind of like a low-grade monsoon season, where we do see those afternoon showers and thunderstorms, because most likely you're not going to get hit, but there's still that chance where you will be the one spot in all of East Texas where you end up seeing some rain.
All right, Carson, yeah, I appreciate that clarification because I needed that clarification too. Another one tonight, this one was sent by Ashley F. saying, what moment was your most challenging when covering severe weather so far in your young career?
That's a good question. I would say probably the most challenging was in 2021. It was the Mount Enterprise tornado. I had to make a lot of decisions on my feet there of, when to go on, who I needed to ask permission to go on. And, ultimately I made the right decision to go on because that was a supercell thunderstorm that produced 3 separate EF2 tornadoes, but that was in March of 2021. And I was the only meteorologist in the studio. We had an anchor like yourself that was giving me the National Weather Service updates until we were fully staffed, and we had all the meteorologists in the studio at that time, but that was on a Saturday afternoon when things looked like they were going to be bad, and they certainly were.
And you were pretty young in your KETK Fox 51 career here when that was all going on, correct?
That is correct. So I was less than 2 years into my KETK career because I got here in 2019, in the fall of 2019, and that was in March of 2021.
All right, Carson, thanks so much. And as always, moving forward, we invite more feedback to In Focus. And if you want your voice to be heard next week, send us an email at infocus@ketk.com. You might see your comments on the show. And coming up after the break, closing words from me and Carson. We'll be right back in just a couple of moments. All right, welcome back tonight. Carson, is there any final thoughts you want to have on severe weather season here in East Texas or anything about your career in meteorology?
So I would say, as we mentioned before, always have a plan, have 2 ways to get that weather watch and weather warning information to your smartphone or NOAA weather radio, anything like that. And again, the East Texas Storm Team, we are here to track those storms when they become threatening to the East Texas area. You can like and follow us on Facebook, and we will be sending out alerts as those storms do get a little rowdy and when they do become severe. But It's been a pleasure talking to you, Nolan, and hopefully this is a quiet severe weather season, but as you know, we are in the peak of severe weather, so we will be here watching. Yeah, all right, Carson. Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope so as well. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We always appreciate talking with you. And don't forget, next week we'll zero in on more issues right here in East Texas. That is all happening this coming Saturday on East Texas in Focus. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.
But in rural areas across East Texas County,